scrubs bags out of duvet covers. This is quite a nice, I think it's a poly cotton. It's got some nice broidery anglais around the edge. I'm going to leave it there because it's just nice decoration, if you can see. It's just a nice little edging. So I'm going to leave that on the edges of the bag where possible. And I'm going to show you how I cut it up. Duvet covers, king size, are roughly 88 inches square. So that gives you 22 inches square per bag. And by the time you've edged it, it's about 20 by 20. So that's quite a good size to put scrubs in, to take home and just throw in the washing machine. So we've straightened this duvet. I say we, my husband and I fought with this duvet to straighten it out. He's doing the camera work. And we're going to cut it. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut it right now. I'm going to fold over. I've got this folded into 4. It's a bit difficult to see with all the broidery anglais on it. But I've got this folded into 4 lengthways. And I've folded it over, so I've got a quarter of the duvet here. I'm trying to get it as straight as I can. It's only going to be roughly cut here. I will straighten it up once I get it onto my sewing table. I've got a rotary cutter and a mat there, and I'll just straighten the edges. Okay, so I'm getting into the quarter and I'm just going to go for it. Just going to cut across. Hopefully it'll be relatively neat. It's quite a fine material, this one, so it's not heavy duty, so I should be able to cut it relatively easy. There is a quarter of the duvet cut up. The edges are a bit rough, but don't panic, we'll straighten those up later. I'm going to put that over one side, and what I'm going to do is cut this quarter as well. So I can see from where I've cut, I'll leave that there as a bit of weight, where I've cut that edge, I'm going to cut across here now. So you can see it's not the straightest in the world. This may be straighter. We can but hope. So there's another quarter of my duvet. That's got to be cut up into 4 more quarters. I'll show you that in a minute. And I'll turn this round and I'm going to cut this in half as well. Ooh. Ooh. Have I got all the right bits? Oh lordy, there's some buttons in there somewhere. Let's see if I can make this happen. Oops. That didn't quite get straightened, but let's just pull that out. It will work. Honestly, it will work. Right, so cutting that in half. So this is actually the middle bit of, or middle quarters of the duvet. So I've got 2 quarters here. And I'm going to put one over here and show you what I'm going to do with this quarter. Okay, this is one of the middle quarters, and you'll do exactly the same with the other middle quarter, if that makes sense. It's all nicely folded. I'm just going to go along here and cut along. I've got it all in between. They're not going to end up being exactly the same size. It doesn't matter, because nobody's going to go and check. Honestly, they're not. What I've got here is a bit with the buttons, and they are 2 separate pieces. I'm going to have to sew around that side and that side and that side, because it's got buttons and the buttonholes on there. That's one of the few pieces I'm going to have to sew all 3 sides, and I will do a sew along the top to put the cord in. So that's one bag. Here's another bag. It's got the broidery anglais. It's got a seam down here where the broidery anglais is attached. So all I'm going to do is French seam it up this side, and I'll French seam it up that side. I will sew along the top here to make the drawstring holder. But I thought it'd be quite nice to leave the broidery anglais on just for a bit of decoration. So that's another bag. And we have 2 pieces of material like that. So what I'm going to do is make use of the seam so that I don't have to sew. I'm folding each one in half. This one's got the nice pattern on it. Again, I'm going to make use of that. I won't sew a seam along there. I will just sew a French seam up the side and up this side. And I will do a drawstring top along the top there. And the same with this piece. It will be folded in half. It's quite a nice fine thread count, this. Folded in half. I'll make use of the seam along the bottom. I won't sew along the bottom. I will just sew, once I've neatened that up a bit, I'll sew a French seam there, a French seam here, and again the drawstring top there. Right, this is a top end of the duvet, so it's got seams on 4 sides at the moment before I cut it. So that is the top end there with broidery anglais. That's the side seam. So this is at the moment 1/4 of the duvet. I'm going to cut it in half. Finding the centre bit. There we are. And I'm just going to cut along the seams here. Oh, not seams. I'm going to cut along the duvet here. And I'm going to cut, whilst it's still all in place and I haven't moved it, there's another seam here on the top. That's the outside edges. This is the inside. That's actually the middle of the duvet, or the middle seam of the duvet. And I'm going to cut that one as well. And this will give me 4 more bags. Again, I'm trying to keep the broidery anglais in just to make it, give it a bit of zhuzh. Make it look pretty. Okay, turning the first one over. You've got the pattern here. There's a seam at the bottom with the broidery anglais. What I'm going to do is French seam up each side and turn over the top to make a hole for the tape to fit into. This is again the same. It's going to be either side. I'm going to do a French seam, turn the top over, make space for the tape. Oops, didn't quite get that one cut. There we go. But the corner ones are great. We love the corner ones because these are already sewn on 2 sides. So the only thing I say only, what I have to do is I'll do a French seam down the side here and then roll the top and put a gap in for the tape to fit. So that'll all get sewn down, but it won't be like that. It'll be like that-ish. And I'll sew it all down and the tape will fit in. And I've got 2 like that. The other 2 pieces of the duvet are exactly the same. So you cut them up in the same way. So you're making as many folds as you can and saving on stitching as much as you can. I do hope that makes sense. I'm going to do a drawing where it shows how I cut, what bits I cut to get the end result. So this is a diagram of a king size duvet. It may only be 8 inches square, but it's a diagram of a king size duvet cover. And what you've got are seams running round the outside, and I've marked those in blue. You can use those seams as part of your scrubs bag, so it saves you sewing. Can't speak. Saves you sewing. So, like here, you've got 2 sides already sewn. So you'll only be doing a French seam down one side and then sewing the tape holder across the top here. Now, where I've put pink is where you actually cut. So you're cutting all the way along here and all the way along here. Down here, and down here. So that gives you one bag. Oh, I should do it at the top really, shouldn't I? So you cut along here, down here, and down here. That gives you one bag with a corner already sewn. A second bag where you've got to do 2 seams. Another bag with 2 seams. And a fourth bag with 2 sides already sewn and a seam that you'll have to sew and the tape header. Here is the middle of the duvet, and again, to save you sewing too many seams, if you cut this hole, and these two this size as rectangles rather than squares, you can use each side of the duvet separately. So this, where I've dotted it with the orange, becomes the bottom seam. So you'll then fold that over, that becomes the bottom seam, and you sew up both sides, and you then have the top as the tape header. The same with what I've numbered 5 and 6. Because you've got a buttonhole opening almost certainly on every duvet, that becomes a bit trickier because it kind of overlaps a bit here normally, so it's sewn up to there and there. But you can cut off the buttons and the buttonholes and do exactly the same as you did here. So that becomes the bottom seam of the bag once you've folded it over, and you've got 2 bags from those 2 pieces of fabric that are in that section. You'll end up with 16 scrubs bags, so 4 along each side. You've got 5 and 6 here, 7 and 8 and 9, 10 and 11, 12, and then 13, 14, 15, 16.